Okay, so you guys know who Ronna McDaniel is, right? The former RNC chair who now has a job at NBC. She went from doing propaganda for the government to getting a job at a media organization. Unprecedented in American history, folks. This is a first. This is earth-shattering news if you take Chuck Todd's word for it. Yeah.
My heart stopped when I heard it.
Just unbelievably... Just like I said, I mean, who ever heard that this happens? Here's Ronna McDaniel being grilled by Kristen Welker about Americans' view of the 2020 election, and should Ronna McDaniel be trusted as a contributor given her support for Trump through that ordeal?
Ronna, before I let you go, you seem to be changing your tone as it relates to Joe Biden being legitimately elected. Why should viewers, why should people trust you believe what you're saying right now?
I don't think I'm changing my tone at all.
But why should people trust what you're saying right now?
One, I will say this. Kristen, voters right now in this country are going to be making a choice in November, and they don't care about 2020. Republicans and Democrats.
A lot of people see it as fundamental to the country's democracy.
I think there's...
No. The morons who watch Meet the Press see it as fundamental to our democracy. Yes. Actually, Ronna McDaniel's absolutely right. Most people do not give a shit about this anymore. And every poll will tell you that. Every single poll will put this issue nowhere near top of the list. It doesn't even register in many of them. Economy, border, Israel. These are the things that are mattering to people. This is, like I said, this is just red meat for the NBC base. And notice I said NBC. Notice the logo in the bottom right. This is important. This will come up later. This is on Meet the Press, which is not MSNBC. This is the NBC Sunday show.
It's
McDaniel is an NBC contributor. That distinction will become important as this segment goes on.
Thinking about inflation, the border, crime, their kids' schooling.
All right, so...
Dive right in. Ronna, before I let
Sorry, I was mid-sip there. I missed the beat. See, that was not very pro of me. I shouldn't have sipped the water.
That's why you didn't make it as a musician, man. Your rhythm is off.
Your rhythm is off. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's the interview. Now, later on Meet the Press, Chuck Todd thought he would stick his neck out and go to bat for Kristen Welker and insist that the head of NBC News owed her an apology for setting her up with a, checks notes, political operative turned media contributor. Because why would you be versed in how to handle that? Like I said, this is an unprecedented situation. It's not like Michael Steele went from running the RNC to NBC News. It's not like Jen Psaki went from being Biden's press secretary to having her own show on NBC, or on, I'm sorry, MSNBC. It's not like Nicole Wallace went from being George W. Bush's press secretary to having her own show on MSNBC. So Chuck Todd really goes to bat, really plays the hero here, and calls out his boss's very courageous move.
dive right in. What were your takeaways?
Look, let me deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
I think our bosses owe you an apology for putting you in this situation, because I don't know what to believe. She is now a paid contributor by NBC News. I have no idea whether any answer she gave to you was because she didn't want to mess up her contract. She wants us to believe that she was speaking for the RNC when the RNC was paying for her. So she has credibility issues that she still has to deal with.
Yeah.
Is she speaking for herself, or is she speaking on behalf of who's paying her? Once at the RNC, she did say that, hey, I'm speaking for the party. I get that. That's part of the job. So what about here? I will say this. I think your interview did a good job of exposing, I think, many of the contradictions. And look, there's a reason why there's a lot of journalists at NBC News uncomfortable with this, because many of our professional dealings with the RNC over the last 6 years have been met with gaslighting.
Right, because she's the first Republican operative to ever criticize the media. I don't know if you knew this, but Republicans never bitched about the media until Ronna McDaniel took over the DNC.
No, the lack of self-awareness to even be making a stink about this. Michael Steele, Steve Schmidt, Donna Brazile. Okay, that's not their network, but the whole industry is overrun by former press secretaries and operatives for both the Democratic and Republican Party. You guys are one big incestuous circle jerk of a clusterfuck. You know that.
Beautiful quote. Yeah. No, look, it's common knowledge.
This
is
there's
part
actually,
of the career
believe it or
arc.
not, there's a German word that means that.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly, yeah. This is part of the career arc. Like, you could argue this is the sweetest part of getting a gig in Washington, is that when you're done working inside the party, you get the cushy cable news contributor gig. Like, this is the final stage of it. Like, it's a stand. Everybody gets this. You're a schmuck if you don't get this.
And it goes the other way. It goes the other way. Sometimes these people go back out of media, back into government.
Right. It's just, it's incredible. Like, the ignorance you have to more
believe your
CIA
audience agents
possesses.
working there than fucking Langley.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, that's the other part of it. Yeah, on MSNBC, you got all these ex-CIA people, right? I mean, it's just, like I said, the disrespect you have for your audience to be able to make this point and trust that they will not scratch their chin and say, wait a minute, what about Michael Steele? What about Nicole Wallace?
Their audience has well earned that assumption.
Well, yes,
because
of course.
I
cultivated it.
I promise you, my friend Sidney Applebaum was sitting there. Yes, God damn it! Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, of course.
Have been met with character assassination. So it is, that's where you begin here. And so when NBC made the decision to give her NBC News' credibility, you got to ask yourself, what does she bring NBC News? And when we make deals like this, and I've been at this company a long time, you're doing it for access to audience. Sometimes it's access to an individual, and we can have a journalistic ethics debate about that. And I'm willing to have that debate. And
what do you mean we can have a debate about this? Like, it's just, it really is stupefying. Like, it really almost leaves you speechless. Like, if we didn't have to run our mouths about this, it would be hard. I was on Jimmy's show last night and this came up. And I told Jimmy, I said, hey, sometimes you just got to admit you got nothing. Because it's just so, like, well, how do you even answer this? How do you even answer this? This is just, I mean, you talk about gaslighting. To act as if this is a unique situation that you've been put in. Where you have this former...
I've never seen this before.
Adversarial political operative who's now part of the team, kind of. I mean, she's a contributor. Jen Psaki's a host. She's a host of the show. Nicole
Psaki
Wallace is
already
a host.
had that deal while she was still press secretary.
Yes, exactly. Like, it is just so bizarre that he could say this.
You told me we were hiring her as a technical advisor to the Republican convention. I think that would be certainly defensible. If you told me we're talking to her, but let's see how she does in some interviews and maybe vet her with actual journalists inside the network, see if it's a two-way, what she can bring the network. So I do think, unfortunately...
Okay, what I saw her say in that interview was quite accurate, which is that the average American doesn't want to hear about the 2020 election anymore. They're focused on the economy. They're focused on the border. They're focused on the future.
Where's the lie?
Yeah, well, where's the lie? Like, what did she say that makes you believe? What? Because she didn't fucking harikari herself for going along with Trump in 2020? That means she has integrity issues?
Oh, no. If she did that, they'd bring her in with open arms.
Right. Exactly.
They're good with Liz Cheney.
Yes. Yeah, that's clearly it.
This interview is always going to be looked through the prism of who is she speaking for, right? I think you did everything you could do. You got put into an impossible situation, booking this interview, and then all of a sudden the rugs pull out from under you. You find out she's being paid to show up. It's unfortunate for this program, but I am glad you did the best that you could, and that's why the three of us are on here to try to bolster that editorial independence.
Well, I appreciate that.
What a guy.
What wasn't he retiring from Meet the Press?
I thought he was. Well, she's the host now, right? And I guess he's just on the panel.
He
hosted it for a while.
He's not hosting anymore. I
guess they just called him in. Yeah.
He is really. I've long said this, and this is not the fucking brain trust over there at NBC. He is one of the dumbest motherfuckers to ever sit in an anchor chair.
Yeah. I mean, that was Exhibit A for that case, for sure. Here is
like him and Thomas Friedman should really have a contest for who has the lowest aggregate IQ.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I would like to see Chuck Todd's Animal Planet, essay that he submits to the New York Times or the Washington Post, whoever they are in with more over there. NBC's McDaniel mess threatens to explode. At NBC, this from Politico. The uproar inside NBC over Ronna McDaniel's hiring spilled into Monday morning as more of the network's top personalities denounced the deal with the former RNC chair. So once again, that was on NBC, Channel 4, Basic Cable, Meet the Press, The Sunday Show. On Monday, that's when the MSNBC hosts were all back at work since they mostly take the weekends off. So now you get the real brain trust of the Morning Joes and Nicole Wallace's, and, of course, the Rachel Maddows, which we'll get to in a second. Into Monday morning, as more of the network's top personalities denounced the deal with the former RNC chair, escalating a battle over the relationship between powerful media companies and Donald Trump's loyalists. The decision to hire McDaniel, which was unanimously supported by top network executives, has already divided and destabilized one of America's most storied news organizations, with internal dismay flaring on text chains and Slack channels since the deal was announced late last week. The dissent broke into the open Sunday when the network's top political analyst, Chuck Todd, top political analyst, pilloried executives moments after McDaniel's first network appearance and interview with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press. Todd expanded on his comments, writing Monday on X, the issue isn't about ideology. It's about basic truth. Those trying to make this a left-right issue are being intentionally dishonest. This is about whether honest journalists are supposed to lend their credibility to someone who intentionally tried to ruin ours. Again, find me a Republican operative who has not attacked the media in the last 50 fucking years.
It's as old as acne.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to act as if that's at all unique is just bonkers. The on-air protests represent what could be a seminal moment in political media as news organizations continue to grapple with how to responsibly represent voices from the Trump right on their screens and in their pages without handing their platforms over to election deniers or bad faith actors who have attacked and attempted to discredit their own reporters. That's really what this is all about. It's all about these people have the ick factor on them, and we have to protect our audiences from them. And our audience will always pat us on the back for this, right?
Well, and you know what? Now that I think about it, Sarah Palin aside, Nicole Wallace really did come out of an era where that open chumminess was really celebrated between the Republican operatives and the Democratic operatives. Like that was the height of people going gooey-eyed at the sight of Matlin and Carville being married, right? That's their ideal. That's their ideal, right? That those two are married. Two rich assholes belonging to different parties in a marriage. That's their vision of America.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We weren't asked our opinion of the hiring, but if we were, we would have strongly objected to it for several reasons, Joe Scarborough said Monday at the top of Morning Joe, MSNBC's flagship morning broadcast, with co-host Mika Brzezinski adding, "We hope NBC will reconsider its decision. It goes without saying that she will not be a guest on Morning Joe in her capacity as a paid contributor." Network insiders are now watching to see if other hosts and contributors speak their minds as well, with eyes particularly peeled for MSNBC's primetime lineup Monday, where tentpole anchor Rachel Maddow is set to go live at 9 p.m. And as expected, she chimed in and gave the Emperor's thumbs down to Ronna McDaniel in terms of her MSNBC work.
It's my understanding that MSNBC's leadership did not object to Ronna McDaniel being hired by NBC News when the matter first arose. But when the hiring was announced and MSNBC staff essentially unanimously and instantly expressed outrage, our leadership at MSNBC heard us, understood, and adjusted course. We were told this weekend in clear terms, Ronna McDaniel will not be on our air. Ronna McDaniel will not be on MSNBC. And I say that and give you that level of detail because there has been an effort since by other parts of the company to muddy that up in the press and make it seem like that's not what happened at MSNBC. I can assure you that is what happened at MSNBC. Ronna McDaniel will not appear on MSNBC. So says our boss since Saturday, and it has never been anything other than clear. And I will also say, if you care what I think about this, I will tell you the fact that Ms. McDaniel is on the payroll at NBC News, to me, that is inexplicable. I mean, you wouldn't hire a wise guy. You wouldn't hire a made man like a mobster to work at a DA's office, right? you wouldn't hire a pickpocket to work as a TSA screener.
You have John Brennan on MSNBC. You have Nicole Wallace on MSNBC.
John Brennan, who should be in prison for lying to Congress about spying on the Senate when they were investigating their torture programs. They hacked into Senate computers of sitting senators to spy on the investigation, and he lied about it before Congress.
Yeah, I mean,
put him on.
The level of analysis is just so incredibly shallow, and that's why there is a special contempt for Rachel Maddow, because she's a Rhodes Scholar. She clearly knows.
She knows better
than this. She clearly knows this is not the first time a compromised person has gotten a job at a media organization. Like, it's just so absurd.
And so I find the decision to put her on the payroll inexplicable. And I hope they will reverse their decision. And it's not about, Democratic Party, Republican Party. It's not about partisanship. It's not about right versus left. It's not about being a political professional versus some other kinds of person. It's not about being mean or nice to journalists. It's
well, okay. That's true in a sense, not that last part. No, it's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about what the Republican Party is now versus your social class and the ethos of your social class. That's what it's about. She doesn't represent Steve Schmidt, Nicole Wallace, that pre-Trump Republican Party, as much as they were laying the ground for MAGA with Sarah Palin. It wasn't there yet. It wasn't there yet. They certainly had a lot to do with the Republican Party becoming what it is now, but going after the press in that way, it was still that very chummy, collegial, the West Wing kind of an atmosphere. Sure, it's not about her being Republican. It's about her being a certain kind of Republican. You don't want the world as it exists now represented on the airwaves.
Indeed.
It's not about just being associated with Donald Trump and his time in the Republican Party. It's not even about lying or not lying. It's about
if she
our
had been
system
a
of government.
Trump person, then that would be okay.
And undermining elections and going after democracy as an ongoing project.
All right. Very good. Very good. That's enough, as they say. Look, this is a trivial story on the surface, but it's really not. You wonder how you get to a point where you have a 2024 rematch of 2020, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. You wonder why the choices in this country are as bad as they are. That's why. Because the people who control who ascends within these two major parties are completely brainwashed by propaganda like that. On MSNBC, it's that. On Fox News, it's something else. Tucker punctured that too much and had to go, right? So now you get the bizarro version of that over on Fox, and that is how you get to a point where, as the world is crumbling around us, we are faced with the same two people who put us in this position to begin with. The brainwashing is unbelievable. The shallowness, the stupidity of the audiences, which have been deliberately cultivated by the mega corporations who own people like Rachel Maddow. That's why you are where you are. That's why we are where we are, because the audiences of those media programs are the gatekeepers in terms of who ascends to power and who doesn't. And there are other structural pieces in place that make the problem worse. But the reason why no progress is possible within any of these two major parties is because of shit like this, especially the Democratic Party. Yes, Fox News, it functions similarly to MSNBC, but Fox News does not have as tight a grip over the Republican base as MSNBC does over the Democrats. If that were true, Trump would have not broken
Right.
through in the first place since they tried to stop him.
They were against it. People forget that now. Fox was all in against Trump and what he represented. But they saw their audience was going to go in another direction. And in the end, they saw where their bread was buttered. But at this point, having gotten rid of Tucker, they've reverted back to form. It's we did that Tyson thing the other night. They're going back to what they were pre-Tucker kicking out the fence.
The Hannity, the O'Reilly, right? Who cares?
The culture war shit. We got a lot of it in the comments on our Tyson thing. Somebody said, I guess everyone sells out eventually. Yeah, we're selling out to the migrants. The migrants are stuffing money in our pockets here. So yeah,
they're actually hosting next week. We're going to go to the Roosevelt Hotel and set up a studio there. We're going to let the immigrants host the show next week while Russell's doing the Jimmy Dore show. Yeah.
Yes, Jose and Miguel will be here next week.
They'll be on. Yeah, exactly.
It's just absurd. And they went back to that. They went back to just ginning up culture war, anger, and resentment. Without Tucker, that's all they have. Tucker was this very unique voice. I'm curious. I haven't looked at it. What it's done to their ratings getting rid of him. Like with Tucker, you couldn't say it was just a reflection of MSNBC. But
right.
Now it is. Now it's which is what it was before. You have this little aberration where all of a sudden this anti-war populist voice emerged on that channel. But now they have none of that. Yeah, this is why when you talk to libs, they live in a parallel universe. They think this is reality, but unfortunately it is our political reality because the people most likely to consume this, those motherfuckers vote. They show up. And a lot of the people who tune it out, which is the majority of people, are politically apathetic or they've given up on bothering. So that's why this stuff has impact. Even if you look at the ratings of these stations, Fox is the most successful. But if you look at the numbers, it's not a lot of people. And it's a very narrow elderly demographic. But those people vote.
Yes, and that's why it's important for independent media to have a focus on this. Like part of the role of independent media is to dissect and pick apart corporate media to get people off of it. Onto media like this, right?
That's the purpose of our independent media. There's a lot of independent media that's auditioning to be the next wave of.
Well, that's what I mean. Media. That's the purpose. That's what should be the purpose.
Report.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point.
Please clap.